Mattia Binotto has opened up on Sauber's lineup yet again, as it seems like the Swiss engineer is now keen on reopening the talks with a driver who many had doomed to be done when it comes to an F1 career. But with the choices being extremely wide, and with Sauber now having to deal with positive stress as they have so much to choose from, is the all-German duo the perfect way to continue forward? And if so, how can they handle the situation so they will extract the maximum out of their lineup? One of the drivers who we saw being a bit neglected in the drivers' market is Mick Schumacher, as the German was related to a drive in Alpine because of his current endeavour, a WEC drive with the French squad. Be that as it may, the fact that he hasn't been chosen by Alpine but replaced with their academy driver Duhan was more or less the move that many experts believed was the nail in the coffin for Mick's career. Obviously, there is only one seat available now, and even though the momentum has shifted a bit towards the other drivers like Colapinto and Bortoleto, Binotto has confirmed that the interest in signing Mick Schumacher hasn't gone down. Even though Mick has lost a little bit of momentum when the silly season started to shape up against his willpower, especially when he wasn't picked to be replaced Sargent and was described as not special by Vowles, the new COO of Audi seems to not have given up on the German driver just yet. After all, from what we can witness happening between Sauber and Mick, it does look like Audi are not willing to give up on their dream just yet. Have an all-German lineup headed into 2026, similar to what Alpine had when they signed Gasly, with the difference that Audi will want to witness a bit more success compared to their French rivals. Binotto has confirmed that the initial interest Audi had in Schumacher hasn't disappeared, and for the second seat next to Hülkenberg, the German team is still considering the services of Mick, even though he hasn't had an opportunity to prove himself after the Haas tenure had gone so wrong. But nevertheless, we're talking about a driver who's won Formula 3 and Formula 2 championships, and this is a driver who should be respected regardless of how poor of a treatment he received from the American squad. It's true that Mick's performance wasn't there either, as multiple crashes have put the team in a position close to bankruptcy, but other than that, he has been quite a stellar driver who even outperformed Magnussen on many occasions. When talking about the future of Sauber's seats, Binotto said, "We can afford the luxury of not rushing, since all the other teams have decided their lineups. Two essential aspects. On the one hand, experience to set the growth path. On the other, a young, talented driver who can accompany us on the path to the top. Schumacher is definitely an option. We're evaluating it. I met him and spoke to him. I've known him for a long time, having been part of the Ferrari Driver Academy. I know his strengths and weaknesses, and he's one of the names we have in mind." What we can definitely count on is that Sebastian Vettel will give a good word or two about Mick's talents to Binotto, because Mattia has already expressed his full trust in the four-time world champion that he knows and understands the sport better than anybody else, which practically means that if Vettel isn't ready to come back in a role similar to Mick's father Michael, then he will definitely lobby for his son to receive a second chance in the sport. While Mick has been treated harshly by the media, with some F1 pundits going to the extent of saying that the young German driver doesn't deserve a seat in F1 after the failed Haas stint and the fact that he hasn't been able to land a seat for 2025, Sauber sees things differently, which has been proven by the other candidates for the seat, such as Bortoleto and Colapinto. As of now, Mick's fiercest competition is definitely Colapinto, because the Argentinian driver will have the full support of his team principal to land a spot in the German squad from 2025 onwards, which will further help his case of continuing as a full-time F1 driver in the upcoming campaign. Furthermore, Colapinto is the only one of the drivers who are candidates for Sauber's seat apart from Bottas, who can prove what they're made of right now. At this moment, with the current regulations being so close and the cars being very tight in their operating windows, which cannot be said for Bortoleto or Schumacher. When talking about giving Colapinto an option to be part of Audi but still remain under the contractual obligations with Sauber, Vowles said, "What I really hope is that Colapinto is competing in the sport next season. I want a place for him so he can race in 2025, and ideally in Formula 1. In 2 races he has shown the world he deserves a place in Formula 1. I've always firmly believed that you have to give good drivers opportunities, so we'll see if we can find a way to work with Sauber in this circumstance. That's what I was insinuating about regarding next year." But we cannot just ignore the fact that Bottas is still present in the sport, and while his results are definitely not representative of the form, given the fact that Sauber are the bottom of the table without any aspirations to be competitive in 2025 either, Bottas is still one of the best drivers on the grid for the position that Sauber are offering. Even the Finn himself said that it doesn't really help that he's not able to score points with Sauber, because it looks like he's the bad driver. When compared to his teammate, he's been performing extremely well. But again, the points are not there, and it automatically means that the willpower to keep Bottas drops significantly. What also goes against Bottas is the fact that there is a wave of new drivers who are willing to show what they're made of, and in this particular situation, it would be one of Colapinto, Bortoleto, or Schumacher. Yes, Mick has shown what he can do in a couple of seasons in Haas, but ultimately there was never a realistic opportunity for him to prove that he can score points in a consistently good car. In the second half of 2022, when he was given the ultimatum that he needs to score points in order to be kept as a driver, even though Mick failed to do this, he outperformed his teammate Magnussen on a regular basis, but finished behind him due to the better performance of the Dane in the first half of the season. When talking about his opportunities to sign a contract with Sauber, Bottas highlighted the main disadvantages that we just talked about, as he said, "Yeah, the team struggles have complicated matters in terms of securing my seat. That's how the sport is. I think it's not just this season, but if you look at this one and the last one, when you're fighting towards the back, obviously, it's much less visible on what you can do and what kind of performances you're having. It's pretty much against your teammate that you can have a good comparison. So for sure, you're more out there if you're fighting within the points and towards the front end. So far, it's not helping the situation." And as if two young drivers aren't enough to put pressure on Bottas, there is also Bortoleto that we need to talk about. The young Brazilian has been managed by Fernando Alonso, and if there's something about the two-time world champion that everybody knows, it's that he knows his way around and how to make a young driver succeed in some of the harshest environments in the world. Be that as it may, Alonso is still not ready to rush things with Bortoleto, and when talking about whether or not we will see him in the sport sooner rather than later, the Spaniard said, "Bortoleto is an incredible talent, but at the same time, Brazil has a lot of history in Formula One, a lot of background in great drivers, and maybe some pressure as well. We need to give Gabriel his time as well. His time in Formula One will arrive. We don't need to take any shortcut that can compromise the development of his talent. He needs to get in the right time and when he's totally prepared, and in the right team and at the right environment. That is the biggest challenge." Many have understood that this is a warning, as we might not be looking at Bortoleto in Formula One in 2025. However, Alonso made sure to confirm that the Brazilian driver is still in contention for the seat, and when talking about this matter to a greater extent, Alonso said, "No, Bortoleto is not out of contention for Sauber's seat. I think the team has to make some decisions. And for sure, Gabriel is very appealing for everybody at the moment. The situation with McLaren is not a problem. There are never problems in Formula One. Everything can be adjusted." With all of this in mind, the narrative has shifted towards Mick's side in a matter of days, and whether or not this will be enough to give him a second chance, time will tell. But what is most important to note is that this is definitely one of Mick's last chances to prove himself in the sport. So considering it all, do you think that the former Haas driver has what it takes to be given a seat in Formula One yet again? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.